but understand this is the lunchtime slot. So if people want to eat, then we understand that as well. As I mentioned, we are recording, and we like microphones to be switched off. We also, you might have heard me say to Rachel, we don't allow AI assistants into these sessions, because we've had instances where when AI assistants come in, they share the recording and notes immediately afterwards, and they're not always accurate. So we like to share those separately, which we'll do. And if you'd like to turn captioning on, please do so. We've got the facility. In terms of the session itself, if you've got any questions, then please do pop those in the chat, and there'll be an opportunity at the end to sort of answer some of those questions, and we'll make sure that we get to them. And if we can't get to them in the session, then we'll certainly get answers or comments and come back to you separately. I'll stop talking now. Oh no, I won't stop talking, sorry. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview about where this session's come from. So I'm the comms lead, I'm Katie, I'm the comms lead for Active Derbyshire and Active Notts. And obviously all of our work is around addressing inequality and inactivity. And we know that that leads us to certain places in our counties and cities and to certain groups of people. And so what we found is that the more that we try and kind of raise awareness of this, that where there's funding opportunities available, or where we're trying to sort of share work that's happening, we're getting a bit of a backlash. We found we're getting backlash on social media around it. And I guess we kind of struggled a little bit in terms of the best way to respond. So we do respond, we try and kind of look at the best way and take each case as it comes. But we definitely identified internally that that was something that we would really find having support useful for. And so that led to a conversation with Anne-Marie, who obviously led us to Dee, and they've obviously agreed to run this really great session just around how we can deal with some of that and feel more confident too, and to better protect our communities, because that's, I think, from our perspective, what we really want to do, protect the communities that we want to try and engage with, and who we want to, they want them to feel empowered to be active in a way that works for them. So hopefully that's a very quick overview of where this has come from, but I'll pass on to Anne-Marie, who can facilitate this much better than me. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. Obviously, I'm Anne-Marie, and I'm representing Black Leaders in Sport Network. So Black Leaders in Sport Network launched 9th of November last year, and we're an organisation that's committed to Black professionals and tackling discrimination in all levels of sport and all parts of sport, not just competing. So today we're here to address a critical issue that affects athletes, clubs, organisations, community groups, and basically it's racism in sports communications. So racism is not just a historical issue, it's happening right now, as we're all aware, and it's in stadiums, it's on social media, and it's in our everyday conversations. So recently, data from Kick It Out's reports for football's discrimination cases have reached a record high, which is really disappointing. So with about 32% rise in this season alone, with grassroots football having seen like a 25% increase of online abuse, which has doubled. So just for example, last month, players across leagues from like Motherwell Football Club and Marvin, I can never say his surname right, so I'm going to try again, it's Catella, to Manchester City's sort of Khadija. They faced racial abuse on social media on a regular basis. And this isn't just about football, it's about the sports arena itself, it's about communications which are broken. So a 2024 IPOS study on racism in professional sport found that racism remains a concern across every sport, from broadcasting, athletes, and even fans who speak out, like Bobby Seagull. And they're all targeted online. And this stems from where our conversation started with Active Partnerships, based on something they had posted in relation to a great programming project that they were running. And this is how we've ended up here. So the question is, does racism exist in sports communications? But rather, how do we tackle it? And that's exactly why we're here today. So I'm hoping that this workshop, led by Moez, and I hope I said that right, Danita, is a specialist in social media training, and together we're hoping that we'll explore the importance of managing negative comments in promoting equalities, how to identify and assess harm online sentiments, strategies to effectively manage and respond to discrimination, and proactive approaches to support and empower our communities. So we're all here this afternoon, and thanks for giving up your lunch break. And we all have a role to play in shaping a safer and a more inclusive sports environment. So let's get started, and I'll hand you over to Dee from Moez Agency.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dee from Moez, which is a Latin word. So apologies to everybody who's asked me how to say it. It's Moez, and it means culture, trends, and things that are happening right now. As Anne-Marie mentioned, we're here to discuss online negative sentiment, specifically around racism in sports and the movement world. And in this digital age, we have an endless opportunity to reach and engage with people. And social media gives us the power to directly communicate with the communities we serve. And it's making it a crucial tool for addressing inequalities. By ensuring our messages are communicated accurately and responsibly, we can play a key role in not only raising awareness, but generating interest in the positive initiatives that you're all running, but also to unite communities against discrimination. How we handle online conversations can either strengthen or damage our efforts to create a fair and inclusive society. So why is it important? Why are we here today? And negative comments can have both short-term and long-term impacts, and they can discourage participation, they can lower morale, and even damage the reputation of individual organizations. So organizations like your own, or even movements, bigger movements. A toxic environment online makes it harder for community members to engage and feel safe. And addressing these comments is crucial. Sometimes this means responding publicly, but other times it means privately reaching out to those expressing their concerns. An interesting fact is that the UN High Commissioner just last year, Volker Turk, recently stated that free speech is not a free pass to spread harmful discrimination. And he wrote to all of the top social media companies, highlighting that free speech was being used as a way to spread hateful comments and discrimination. It's particularly targeting people of African descent and other groups. And it doesn't just violate their rights, but it also fractures the communities that they're trying to be a part of. So negative comments on social media have those far-reaching consequences. And as I've said, they can discourage participation. Their impact is that they erode your community and the trust that your community has in you. They also have the potential to discourage the people that we're trying to engage in the sporting and movement activities. They also undermine your efforts to promote inclusivity. We must be proactive in measuring these comments to ensure our digital spaces remain not only safe, but inclusive and constructive. So let's have a look closer at exactly what these comments are and what the difference between the types of negative sentiment that we get on social media are. We can break it down into three clear groups of comments, negative comments that you might encounter online. The first is constructive criticism. It's a type of feedback, but it is also valuable, even though it can be negative. For example, this event had very little diversity is a comment that I've seen under one of my clients' particular social media post. Deleting comments like this can make the brand or the organization look untrustworthy. But instead, what we can do is acknowledge them and try to move the discussion to a private channel. The second is trolls, and you might have heard the term. It's a social media term, and it's become very popular in the last few years. Trolls post provocative or off-topic comments with the goal of causing disruption. Recognizing this is key. They are personal attacks, they are off-topic rants, or their repeated antagonisms, those are common signs that that is a troll. The way to deal with the troll could be blocking or ignoring the comments, which we'll go into more about how we can do all of these things later. Hate speech is what we're here to discuss, and these comments are different from trolling and constructive criticism because they are racist, sexist, or otherwise discriminatory. These should be reported, and each platform has its own ways of reporting hate speech or hateful language, but they can also be removed or hidden on all platforms. Each platform has its own mechanisms, and particularly in England and Wales, certain types of online hate speech can be considered as a criminal offence. So also keep that in mind when you are dealing with hate speech on social media. So when do we engage? One of the biggest challenges in crisis communications is knowing when to respond and when to ignore. Responding can sometimes escalate situations, drawing more negative attention, but it can also, but silence can also be harmful. It can be seen as an indifference or an acceptance, or it can also be seen as agreement by different members of your communities. A good rule of thumb that I use, and I'd encourage you to use, is engage when a response can add clarity or diffuse the situation. Ignore or block when the comment is purely inflammatory or hate-driven. Clarification is needed, so asking for more information can also open the conversation up to other community members to get involved. When misinformation is spreading, as I mentioned before, we have a right to be fair and to make sure we tackle misinformation spreading across social media individually. So when we feel that misinformation is spreading, this is an important time for us potentially to go back to our teams and discuss whether a response is necessary. But also the opportunity to educate exists. And this is an important one. It's an opportunity for you to provide further information, but not only by stopping misinformation, but clarifying and making sure that your community members have tools to learn more. As I mentioned, it's best to avoid these when your comments are provocative or when you're unsure about things where you may escalate the situation. But what are the risks? And there are some risks to responding or not responding. Poor responses can worsen an already tense situation. A defensive or dismissive reply can fuel anger and backlash. However, ignoring legitimate concerns can also damage credibility and trust. It's about balance. Acknowledge concerns, but avoid escalating unnecessary conflict. You can do this and it will help you to control damage to your organization and also save you from alienating members of your community. There are some key principles to making sure that your response is effective. And these come down to 3 things, which I've split in added a little bit more detail in the slide about. The first one is timing. So a prompt response shows that the issue is taken seriously. The faster you respond, the less the frustration builds. This is really important. And I don't mean you have to respond instantly, but what I do mean is not leaving responses months down the line, weeks down the line, trying as best as you can to respond if you can within 24 hours, but also within a few days, means that you can kind of quench the situation and stop others from commenting, but also stop that particular person from becoming frustrated. Your tone is going to be very important. Stay professional, polite, and firm. Set clear boundaries without escalating your conflict. So being transparent, open, and honest is going to be really helpful in doing this. And the last thing is your language. Research shows that empathy-based counter speech can reduce the spread of hate speech. So, and I can share the study with anybody who's interested at the end, but the study basically asked over 2,000 different people about hate speech on the internet. And what they found and tested was that if businesses and brands that responded promptly with empathetic language not only saw a decline in hate speech, but they found that individuals were prone to deleting or modifying their negative comments, which helps you because it saves you from having to delete that said comment. So do have a think about how you can be empathetic to people's opinions, even when they aren't your own personal opinion, or even when they can be divisive. And also making sure that your responses are consistent. Are your responses within your organizational values, within the things that you want to present to your audience as an organization, but also are they written in your company tone of voice, for example? De-escalation. When tensions are really high, using de-escalation, these 3 de-escalation strategies can really help. So the first thing is to acknowledge concerns without validating that negativity. We understand that this is a sensitive issue and we take these concerns seriously. It's a short sentence, but it can do a world of good in making somebody feel heard. Also, you can redirect conversations to positive aspects. So you can highlight success stories, solutions, rather than focusing on that conflict. For example, in the particular case of Active Partners, I think it was the Swim Sisters project, where they had negative comments come in. You can also share other projects that you are running that do meet that particular person's demographic, for example, and share solutions that would be appropriate to them, to show that you're not just meeting one part of your community, but you're also running other initiatives that can help them too. And the third one is to offer an offline solution. When all else fails, take it offline. We'd love to discuss this further. Please DM us so we can resolve the issue effectively, or even taking the proactive step to DM them directly and to start a conversation outside of the comments. This often really works, and it can save you from having further comments on other posts or other pieces of content that you share. As that person feels like they're being heard, but also that their frustrations are being dealt with and managed effectively. So one thing that is going to be very important is that you create a strong online community, and encouraging positive interactions and celebrating achievements within that community fosters a culture where harmful negativity struggles to survive. By highlighting success stories and recognizing positive contributions, we shift the focus towards productive discussions and away from the toxicity. Beyond managing negativity, we should actively build a positive and supportive community. So how do we do that? We celebrate successes by sharing positive stories and highlighting community achievements. We encourage respectful interactions by setting clear expectations for online discussions. And we empower community voices by showcasing diverse perspectives and amplifying those underrepresented voices. Communicating and engaging with leaders like Anne-Marie at the Black Leaders in Sport Network. By fostering a culture of respect, we can make our online spaces not only inclusive, but also supportive for our communities so that everybody feels heard. Okay. So how do we manage our online spaces to reduce harm? And managing online spaces proactively, it means setting clear guidelines. And I'd recommend that all of you go away today, if you haven't already, and have a think about what those clear community guidelines are. They don't have to necessarily be public facing, but I have worked with businesses where they choose to put these on their website so that all users of social media can see what is expected of them on their platforms. But also these can be and are better off known throughout your organization. And these guidelines can help with things like responding to comments, and you can find as they grow and develop, you can include boilerplate responses for issues that you tackle regularly. So establishing expectations and respectful communication and engaging users in shaping that positive environment is going to be key to making sure, like I said, that that negative toxic sentiment has is struggles to survive. Encourage community members to support each other, but also encourage them to report the harmful behavior that they see early. And this takes some of the responsibility away from you. Sometimes we are busy and we miss negative comments, or we miss things that might be offensive to others purely because of our own worldview or perspectives. So encouraging your community to be a part of your social media presence is also a very important and key part to handling this negative sentiment. Creating a safe and constructive online environment requires you to actively manage, and that means in establishing those and enforcing those community guidelines, but also encouraging the positive interactions and collaboration between your community. Providing clear avenues for reporting and addressing harmful behavior is also important. So make sure that they understand how they can address that. Do they DM you? Do they send an email to a regulatory email address, for example? And these steps are going to help massively to reduce the spread of that negativity, and also to present and promote a sense of belonging to your audience. And they become caretakers, or almost helping you manage those same things. So generally, I hope it's been as clear as possible, and I didn't want to make it too detailed because it is on your lunch break. I've left quite a lot of time for questions because I'd like this to be, and I hope that you all want to partake in this, but I'd like this to be a useful talking space today. I'd like you to use myself and Anne-Marie maybe to ask any questions about the experiences that you have had on social media, because it's fine me just telling you these things, but practically it can be quite difficult to action. So while you have us here, please take the opportunity. We've got maybe the next 10 minutes, or maybe it's a little bit less than that, about 7 minutes, sorry. But please, if you can, is it okay for me to tell them to turn off their microphones, or would you prefer it to be in the chat?
No, happy if people turn off the microphones if they want to and just kind of ask the questions. We do have one already in the chat. We've actually only got till 1:30, Dee, so we have got a bit of time for questions.
Perfect.
So one in the chat from Sam just saying, do you have an example of guidelines? So I guess that kind of those community guidelines. Is there any examples that you can maybe share?
Yes, and I can make sure to share those with Katie afterwards, so that they can be shared throughout. But the type of things that go into those particular guidelines, as I said, are kind of often boilerplate responses to things that you tackle regularly. It just means that it keeps everybody across the whole team clear on what a response should be. It also determining between your team and your community what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable online. Some communities may be happier than others to discuss topics that can cause conflict, and sometimes your initiatives and projects do actually discuss those topics. So it's also creating that free and open space. They're often written documents, and I would encourage you not to make them too long. I've seen 20-page, social media community guidelines, and I've seen 1-pagers. I find the 1-page works best because it means that it's clear and helpful for everybody to understand. But also it is quick and easy to engage with. And I would say focus on the things that you deal with the most first, and then work backwards on smaller things, particularly being racism and any discriminatory comments. I would start dealing, how do we deal with those as an organization? Often I start, when writing guidelines, very simply at just using my kind of common sense or my general moral compass, and I'd go through the comments that we do generally get and have a think about whether or not that's acceptable or that's not acceptable, and start very simply with, does this get deleted or does this remain? and then you can build out from there. So if it is deleted, are you then going to block that particular person, for example, from commenting anymore? Are you going to report a comment? What is the line that is crossed between reporting a comment, and also what is the line between just hiding it and not escalating the situation any further? I will share an example of it with Katie, and you can all check that out as well. There's a comment from Annie that says, for your presentation, I'll take some notes back. Oh, thanks very much. And goodbye. Thank you for coming today. Sean, I see Sean Riley's hand is up.
Oh yeah, I can't seem to see the chat, so I thought I'd just ask it over the mic if that's okay. If we get a problem down the line, is there somewhere you would recommend we go for advice, or somebody could ask if, you know, there's something and you're not entirely sure how to deal with it?
Yes, so there's lots of organisations, Stop Hate UK, and some of the organisations that you probably have become aware of just from working. They offer reporting forms where you can report things, and they also offer really great advice on how to go through any kind of police reporting for hate crimes as well. But also do use organisations like Blisten, like Black Leaders in Sport Network, and they're always open to you know, helping anybody with any questions. And I guess Anne-Marie might want to chime in on how you can do that.
Okay, so Black Leaders in Sport Network, we were set up and incubated with Sported via money from the National Lottery. And how we work is, our members are our resources, and we start from building within. So our members, we service each other, we share resources, and we're here to promote Black leaders and help emerging Black leaders in the industry. So, for example, the reason we've ended up here today is I set up with a conversation with Katie about the issues that they were having, and how do you say her name? Tamisha is in the room somewhere, Tamisha Wicks. And through that conversation, they'd contacted us for some advice about what they'd received from our pool of members. So our members come from all facets of sport. So we were able to recommend Dee because she's our social media, one of the social media experts in the membership pool. And we were able to introduce her as somebody who would be able to support and help. So if anybody has any queries or any questions or seeking any kind of advice or support, do feel free to come to us, and there will always be a member who, or a group of members, who will help you to resolve that, or run a project for you, for example, or run a workshop similar to this, or just address personal or internal needs that you may have. So we resource each other, but we also resource and share our resources externally with any organisation or individuals who require that help or assistance. And that could be absolutely anything. And that also includes people who are working 9 to 5. You don't need to be a founder, or you don't need to be running an organisation. It literally is, we're here for everyone who wants to understand and break down those barriers in sport.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie. A question from Rachel, and it says, when blocking a comment, would you also respond to that publicly so others can see it has been removed? And again, that's something that you would include in your own personal guidelines. I would always say you don't want to add fuel to a fire. So if somebody has put negative comment out there, you might not want to alert other people with the same views, because they will then they can then come to your pages to comment also. But what you could do is repeat and be clear about repeating those guidelines or the expectations of your audience. So maybe a post to, if it was on Instagram, maybe a post to the story reminding your audience of what is expected of them online is also a nice way to share those guidelines. So I have another hand up from Kath.
Hiya. The thing that we struggle with most is what I would probably refer to as deniers. So they are people who will kind of comment to say, and specifically in our case, we're talking about the outdoors, so kind of hiking, climbing, that sort of thing. And they just, you know, the typical response would be something along the lines of, you know, the outdoors doesn't discriminate. And it's a bit tiresome to have to keep replying, yeah, but the people in the outdoors regularly do. But I was just wondering if there's a sort of, if that's the best approach, is to just constantly remind them that no, the environment doesn't, but unfortunately people do, and people are racist, sexist, etc. If there's just a more constructive way to address that sort of, just dismissive approach to the discrimination.
Definitely, like I said, it comes in education. Yes, the statement of, the people in the outside do is fine, but then there are lots of ways, and also it offers you an opportunity to create lots of great social media content, educating the audience on exactly what those figures are. I often find that when disagreeing with somebody, being able to add a fact often makes it much easier, much nicer a rebuttal. So, being able to share the stats with your audience is going to be really key in how you present what you do. And I'm assuming that you take funding, or you get grant funding. So if the funders feel that there is a need for this particular project, then sharing the reasons why the funders feel that is going to make sure that your community can get behind you, but also shut the deniers up a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. I have a question from Rob about my view, or our view, of using events such as Black History Month and Windrush Day to proactively show allyship and support for communities. I'll let Anne-Marie lead with this question, and then I'll follow up from a social media perspective.
Oh, thanks for that. So the question was, Black leaders, sorry, say that again, Black History Month and getting behind us and things like that.
Yeah.
At Blissing, where we have this thing where we say Black History Month is 360. It's all the time, every time. But totally in appreciation of the fact that we actually have Black History Month, bringing it to schools, bringing it to educate people and advertise. And of course we want people behind it. It's a great way for us to, it's only a month, but it's a great way to show off who we are, what we do, and where we really come from. And going back to what Dee said there again, showing off some of the statistics. It's a great educational time as well, and pulling people behind us and watching everybody get involved in it is really important. But again, it's another month when we are more likely to see a lot more derogatory comments, and again, using some of these skills there about how you rebuff them. A lot of our posts are about facts, figures and statistics, similar to what I spoke about today. We do try and use a lot more statistics because it's a great foundation to start the conversation. And it's also a great way to rebuff, negative comments. But at the end of the day, we're here to learn. We're not here to force anyone's arm into changing their views and opinions. But long term, what we'd like to see is change of behaviour through education, through learning, through understanding. And I've come across situations where people will say, why is it Black History Month? Why don't we have this? We have so many holidays per year. We're very, very fortunate to be living in a diverse community the way that we do. There's probably a celebration. I think we're in Ramadan at the moment. Yeah, we're in Ramadan at the moment, but today is also Shrove Tuesday. So for us, it's really about celebrating all of those and bringing everybody on board and not being afraid to ask questions. Please, that's one of the things that we found. So for example, for our launch, we had a lot of people ringing up and asking, was it okay for them to come to the launch or become a member of Black Leaders in Sport Network because they were not Black? And the answer to that is yes, everyone's a member, because we're all trying to change things for the future and for the young people to come after us, and by working as a unit. So we're open to everyone being involved and everyone learning together.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think when it comes to promoting trending days or cultural days on your social media platforms, make sure it's authentic. And it's fine to hold your hands up and sometimes say, we don't really know. Asking a question can create a conversation. And I've seen the most successful, for example, posts around Diwali, around Ramadan, when the organization is bold enough and confident enough to ask the audience, what are your preferences for Ramadan? I myself train in Muay Thai, and my gym just recently sent out a message asking everybody, what type of training would you need? over Ramadan. And those can make great social media posts, just showing that you care, that you're interested, and that you're listening as well. So I would say yes to supporting those Black History Month events, Windrush Day, Diwali, all the different types of cultural events, but being honest in your representation of how you respond and how you show support is going to be key to that. What other questions have we got? We have Helen asks, would you respond to comments on external sites? For example, a local news social media page posted a story about the project, and it was about refugees and asylum seekers. And then that has had a lot of negative comments from the readers. And I would say it's fine if you feel you have the capacity, because social media does take time. If you have the capacity to go and reach out to those people, then do so. Obviously, if they are trolls, as I defined earlier, it's probably best not to communicate with them, because that will only incite them and encourage them to continue posting. But it is fair if you have, a useful fact, a way to educate, or if you also would like to ask for clarification, then there's no reason why you can't do that on another channel, on another organization's channels. So I would say yes. Also, thank you to Asma Iqbal for sharing that. You can report Islamophobia to the Islamophobia Reporting Unit, which is a national charity and has solicitors who offer free advice to take cases. You can also contact your safeguarding welfare officers, which you should all have access to. And Active Partnerships actually has their own program, am I right, of welfare? So you could also get advice from Active Partnerships.
Yeah, so the Asma and who's on the call, she's one of our sport welfare leads. So yes, absolutely, they work within our organisation and can support people around some of this, or kind of like you said, come back with maybe some advice, or where you can go to, or where you can get further support from if they haven't got that information themselves. Oh, Asma's coming in now.
Hello, Asma. Thank you so much for your comments. I see your hands raised. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Great information, and what a great topic. And I echo exactly what you're saying. Be open and have these conversations, and it can be quite difficult. And if you are in a particular club, do access the Sport Welfare Officer Network, which is national, and it's a free service. So it's created after the White Review. So any clubs that you are currently working with or are in, just open that link and you'll find your local sport welfare officer who can connect with you, visit you, and we'll have a chat over the phone or email.
We have a comment from Rachel that says she's interested in whether other people and partners on the call are thinking about developing community guidelines and whether they're keen to share these so we can all learn together. I think that's a brilliant idea. More cooks in this type of situation is always better. Being able to have different perspectives and different life experiences all included in those guidelines are going to make sure that they're not only robust but also useful. So I would recommend that, and I'm not sure if maybe it's something that Active Partners Trust could facilitate for you all.
Yes, I was just going to come in there, Dee, because we have got social media guidelines, and there is an element of there around crisis comms, and if we get anything, and how the team deal with it and escalate it. But we haven't got things like we say, responses that we can add in there, and we've got so much information. All of our work is around addressing inequality, so we've got so much insight into why a lot of this work is in the places that it is, and with the communities that it's with. So I think we could probably do a lot more in terms of that. So I'm more than happy if anybody is interested in joining that conversation. I'm more than happy to sort of facilitate that and set something up so that we can, I guess, this is what we're going to do and this is maybe what you're going to do. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, I'm also happy to help out if you need any further help with that. I think what's important for everybody to understand when it comes to social media and guidelines is the number one role is to understand who you're speaking to, who is your audience, but not just who they are. And I've often asked people, who's your audience? And they'll say, oh, people that buy my product. It's not that simple. Really be granular into how you understand your audience. You know, what is the average age? Where do they live, for example? Where are they? What are their demographic? You know, are they black? Are they white? Are they Asian? And making sure you understand that in granular detail is going to be able to help the way that you communicate with those people. Not just because you understand who they are, but also then you can understand the language that they use, what language is acceptable to them and also not acceptable to them. Understanding how they spend their time, for example, might allow you to understand when you've got a safe period, because not many people will be online. So you could then understand how much time you have to respond to a negative comment. For example, if a negative comment comes in now, then you know that potentially a lot of your audience are going to be on lunch breaks or are going to have their phones in their hand. You might want to tackle it quicker than if it comes in at 7, 8 p.m. at night, when you might know that your audience are probably not online. And all of the social media platforms have the ability for you to access those insights. So do really drill into those insights and keep a check on them, moderate them, check on them regularly. Katie, yes?
I was just going to raise I guess most of our comments that we get come from our sponsored posts. So we do have our audience who we feel that we know, and it's very much a supportive audience, and people share a lot of our work who really understand why that inequality exists and therefore why the work's happening. But we do some sponsored posts for things like when we've got jobs that we're sharing, or if there's sort of funding opportunities or something like that, where we want to try and get that out a little bit wider. And I think that's where we see most of our problems, and a lot of them are around, we put on our job applications around statements around, we're underrepresented in terms of the diversity of our workforce, and we want to try and address that. And that's kind of where those troll comments come, and they're not, as you say, they're not like people seeking out to be to kind of understand more. They're kind of very off the cuff comments that somebody's seen it and is like, oh, another woke organization. I hate people keep banging that term around. And I guess that's where we kind of struggle, because it might not be hate speech, it might just be that opinion, but it's a very off the cuff opinion, and it's whether you think we need to open that out. Actually, do we double down and say we are underrepresented, and we know that the communities that we work with, we don't represent the communities that we work with as much as we want to. So it's kind of, do we double down at that point and have that engagement? Would that go offline? I guess that's where we've seen probably like the most recent examples.
Yeah, I guess the answer is often in your paid advertising, you're extending your reach much further than the audience that you particularly normally target. From a business perspective, your ads should be targeting as similar to the audience that will already engage. And that could be something that you look at in terms of the targeting of those ads. And that should stop the wrong people seeing the ads. And hopefully limit some of that negative sentiment. But also, you're right, making that decision whether or not to keep it online or to take it offline is something that I think is an internal discussion, and it often goes higher than the social media team. But on ads, I would usually say leave comments on ads, delete or ignore comments on ads, because you are reaching so many more people that actually it's a bigger kettle of fish, and you don't necessarily have the time to address every comment in that space. Let me just have a scroll through to see if there's any more hands up. If you do have your hands up and I haven't, or if you do have a question and I haven't got to you, please feel free to just turn off your mic, turn on your mic and ask away. Great. So let me recap. So I think from today, and I hope that it was useful, I've tried to make sure that it was as useful as possible, but also not dull, not too dull. Often in social media, the presentations that I make can be very flashy, all flashy and bells and whistles. with all flashy content. But this is such a serious topic, it didn't feel the right to put lots and lots of examples, but also a sensitive topic. So the takeaways that I hope that you can take away from today is that crisis communication is essential for promoting that equality and inclusion that you want to, I hope, within all your organizations. And your negative comments will vary. And so knowing when to engage and when to ignore, or rather than knowing, understanding for your organization when to engage and when to ignore is something and that you should all do, but also encourage the organization to discuss as much as possible. Your effective responses should be timely, respectful, but also strategic. Make sure that you are posting them on time, that you're using the correct language, that you're transparent as well, but also consistent with your brand values. And when you do use de-escalation techniques, they can help you to shift conversations towards positive outcomes. And remembering to use facts to educate, but also when necessary to take things offline, and feel free to take things offline using an email or the direct message system on whatever platform you're using as well. And the last thing and the most important thing really is to build a supportive community. This is key, not only to fostering a more inclusive digital space, but to making sure that your community feels safe enough to report negative and discriminatory comments, but also to make them feel like a part of the community that they are in. So I'd like to thank you all for your time today and coming along on your lunch break to this talking space. And I'd like to remind you all that we all have a role to play when it comes to shaping a fairer and more inclusive online environment. And so let's take the lessons that we learned today forward and continue to work towards a meaningful change, not just online, but in your organizations on a daily basis. I'm Danita and my email is here, Danita or D to everybody else. My email's here. Feel free to reach out and ask any questions, particularly around how you might create those guidelines, community guidelines. But also, Anne-Marie, you can get in touch with Black Leaders in Sport Network at blisn.org. And you can get all their email addresses and all the details to how you can ask them any questions there. So thank you all for your time today.
Can I jump in, Dee?
Yeah.
There's one final question from Nikki. Are there any brands we could perhaps learn from that you feel does this well?
Yeah, so in the sporting space, I feel that, I mean, the Olympics is my favorite sporting TikTok. And I know TikTok is probably something that everybody's like, oh, we haven't tried TikTok, or it's very scary. But social media, I think that the Olympics is one of the best sporting spaces to learn about how to manage a community, but also how to engage that community. Their TikTok is funny, and they actually just after lockdown took a lot of time to rebrand their TikTok and their Instagram experience, and it actually was a decision to take the mick out of themselves, to start poking fun out of the sports and the Olympics, and that gave them quite a lot of confused comments, but also negative comments in the way that they presented that. And I think that their use of language and their ability to talk to the audience in a language that they understand, but also is familiar to them, it's great. It's a great example of just how to communicate and engage with that organization. So do check out the Olympics on TikTok, have a little bit of a laugh, but also see how that they tackle quite important and divisive topics using humor and comedy.
Thanks, Dee. Rachel, did you want to just do a quick wrap up, and then I'll just share the poll, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think I've got lots to add other than just to thank Dee and Anne-Marie for joining us. I found it hugely helpful, and can see the opportunities that we were touching on then about how we can all work together in this work across Notts and Derbyshire. I think that's really really important. So just really open arms that people want to have a conversation about this. Please do reach out to us as an active partnership. That would be fab. And so I think was that all right, Katie? Hand back to you for the poll.
Thank you. So as usual, I'm just going to share a very quick poll. And once you've done, it's just an anonymous poll. So please do let us know what you think. I'll launch that, and then feel free to leave and enjoy 10 minutes back. But yes, thank you so much, Anne-Marie and Dee. I've learned a lot myself, which is great. And yeah, I'm definitely open to trying to kind of do something and create that kind of community together, that we can be supportive of each other, but also try and do our little bit to address some of the racism that we see in our communications locally. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Amazing. Thank you for having us. I can see that the polls, most people are putting 10. So thank you very much. It's my first time running this particular session, but I am open to running all sorts of social media sessions. So do get in touch if there's anything I can do to help it.
Thanks so much, guys, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day.